Russia's latest atrocity pushed Ukraine to its breaking point. Yesterday, a Russian drone attack stunned the world. An elderly Ukrainian couple and their small dog were killed while waving a white flag, the universal sign of surrender. They weren't soldiers. They were civilians trying to walk to safety, but the drone operator didn't care. Ukraine's response was immediate and strategic. One Moscow could not ignore. Ukraine struck back hard, unleashing a wave of missiles and drones that crippled Russia's drone factories, refineries, and power plants, plunging entire regions into darkness. This is how one act of barbarity changed the course of the war, and why the Kremlin is now facing a reckoning of its own making. The footage appeared online yesterday, filmed in a quiet village in Kharkiv. At first glance, it seemed like another tragic clip from a long war, but within seconds, it revealed something different, something almost too cruel to watch. An elderly couple, both civilians, finally decided to leave their home. Their small dog trotted ahead, and the husband pushed a bicycle, a white flag tied to a stick in his hand. His wife walked beside him. The white flag was meant to signal safety, protected under the Geneva Conventions as a sign of non-combatant status. But from the long grass beside the road, a Russian explosive drone waited. Its operator watched live through the camera feed. The drone rose silently and accelerated towards the couple. Then, an explosion. The white flag flew out of the man's hand, landing in a nearby field. When the smoke cleared, the man lay lifeless on the ground. His small dog, injured but loyal, twitched beside him. Moments later, his wife walked towards his body, only for a second drone to appear overhead. Realizing what was about to happen, she made the sign of the cross and began to pray. Then came another blast. The video ended there. 2 civilians dead, their home reduced to silence, their small dog motionless beside them. When Ukraine released the footage from its reconnaissance drone, the world reacted in shock. Human rights groups called it barbaric. Politicians across Europe and North America condemned it as pure evil. Even the United Nations, where Russia sits as a permanent member of the Security Council, labeled it a potential war crime. A white flag was supposed to mean mercy. To Putin's drone operators, it meant nothing. Ukraine's response came within hours, and it was historic. The Ukrainian military launched a coordinated attack, targeting one of Russia's largest drone manufacturing bases in Donetsk. According to multiple Russian media reports, the strike destroyed over 1,000 Buran-2 kamikaze drones, along with 1,500 stored warheads. The attack used both missiles and long-range drones, overwhelming the Russian defenses. Inside the base, secondary explosions tore through ammunition depots, fuel storage tanks, and a UAV launch site. Nearby power nodes collapsed. The factory was wiped off the map. But the significance went far beyond the physical damage. For the first time, Ukrainian missiles, not just drones, were reaching deep into Russian-controlled territory. That changed everything. Putin's nightmare wasn't just the destruction, it was what it represented. Ukraine had evolved from a country defending itself to one striking the infrastructure that fuels the Russian war machine. This escalation didn't happen overnight. For nearly 3 winters, Russia's strategy has been the same: break Ukraine's spirit by destroying its energy grid. Thousands of Ukrainian civilians have lived without heat, light, or water for weeks at a time. But this winter, everything is different. Ukraine is hitting back, systematically and strategically. Every missile Russia fires at Ukrainian power stations now triggers a response inside Russia. Ukraine's strikes are focused on the lifelines of the Russian grid, the very power stations that feed Moscow itself. On November 4th, just one day after the Kharkiv tragedy, Ukraine hit the Vladimir 750 kilovolt substation for the 3rd time in a month. This isn't just any target, it's a key node that supplies electricity directly to Moscow's central grid. When the blast hit, the lights went out across multiple Russian cities. Footage showed dark streets, silent factories, and emergency generators flickering on in the distance. This wasn't random revenge, it was a message. In the past 7 days, Russian media have reported over 250 power outages across the country. Hundreds of thousands of Russians are now without power or heating as winter approaches. Ukraine's campaign is relentless. Using precision-guided drones and new Flamingo cruise missiles, Ukrainian forces have struck multiple power plants in just 30 days, most of them clustered around Moscow. The map tells the story. The Vladimir power plant hit 3 times. The Furlow power plant, targeted on the same night. The Oriol thermal power station, one of Russia's largest, was obliterated days later. Each strike cuts off another artery feeding power to Moscow, gradually choking the grid that sustains Putin's capital. Then came the refinery attacks. Ukraine's drones struck the Nizhny Novgorod refinery, one of Russia's biggest, processing 18 million tons of oil annually, roughly 30% of Russia's domestic gasoline supply. Footage from the aftermath showed columns of black smoke, and entire districts of Nizhny Novgorod plunged into darkness. For Russia, it was a direct hit to its economic core. Analysts say the symbolism is unmistakable. Ukraine is now forcing Russia to experience the same energy hardship it imposed on others. These strikes mark a turning point, not just for Ukraine, but for modern warfare. For the first time since the full-scale invasion began, Ukraine is projecting force deep inside Russia, well beyond occupied territories. And it's doing so with growing precision. The Ukrainian Flamingo and Neptune missile programs have matured faster than analysts predicted. Combined with UK-supplied Storm Shadow missiles, they've turned Ukraine's once defensive military into a capable offensive power. In fact, after seeing Ukraine's effectiveness, the United Kingdom recently announced an additional shipment of Storm Shadows, reaffirming Western confidence in Ukraine's ability to target Russian infrastructure responsibly. Meanwhile, Russia's vaunted air defense systems, touted as the world's most advanced, are repeatedly failing. In one viral clip, a Russian air defense missile misfired, veering off course and striking a Russian apartment building instead of a Ukrainian target. Even pro-Kremlin channels couldn't hide their disbelief. As Ukrainian attacks increase in accuracy, Russian defenses appear increasingly disorganized and dangerously unreliable. On the front lines, the situation is equally volatile. In Pokrovsk, Russian forces have claimed to encircle parts of the city, but progress remains slow and costly. Ukrainian troops are reinforcing street by street, fighting building by building. Despite minor advances, Russia's losses continue to mount, and the psychological toll inside the country is growing. Videos from Russian cities show residents venting their anger online, complaining about blackouts, freezing homes, and the government's silence. Some even mockingly refer to the outages as Vladimir blackouts, a grim play on both the city of Vladimir and Vladimir Putin himself. For Ukraine, this nickname is poetic justice. After years of suffering under Russia's winter bombardment, the cold is finally being felt on the other side of the border. Energy analysts warn that the damage to Russia's grid could take months to repair. Many of the transformers and substations hit were built decades ago, relying on components no longer in production. Repair crews are racing against freezing temperatures, often working under blackout conditions. In several cases, Russian officials have had to import emergency power generators from China to stabilize the grid. This is more than a technical problem. It's a strategic crisis. Every drone or missile diverted to defend domestic infrastructure is one less weapon available for the front lines. As of early November, Ukrainian intelligence estimates that Russia has been forced to redeploy 40% of its short-range air defense systems from occupied Ukrainian territories back into mainland Russia. That redistribution leaves Russian troops more exposed than ever before. For years, Russian propaganda told its citizens the war was distant, that it was happening somewhere out there. But the reality is closing in. Cities like Kursk, Belgorod, and Bryansk are experiencing regular blackouts. Food supplies are being disrupted, and factories have halted production due to a lack of power. In online forums, even Russian soldiers' families are beginning to ask, why are our sons fighting if we can't even keep the lights on? The same despair once felt in Mariupol and Kharkiv is now echoing in the streets of Russia's own cities. Internationally, the reaction to yesterday's drone footage was swift. The European Union, the United States, and the United Nations Human Rights Council all condemned the attack on the Ukrainian couple as a violation of international humanitarian law. Meanwhile, Western capitals cautiously endorsed Ukraine's right to defend itself, while urging restraint to avoid escalation. But privately, several European diplomats acknowledged that Ukraine's precision counterstrikes have been remarkably effective, forcing Moscow to divert resources and rethink its energy resilience strategy. In Moscow, the tone is different. State media downplays the blackouts, calling them temporary maintenance issues. Yet the Kremlin's growing silence speaks volumes. The war has entered a new phase, one where energy and infrastructure are as decisive as tanks and trenches. Russia began this winter believing it could once again freeze Ukraine into submission. Instead, its own people are now shivering in the dark. And all of it began with one moment, one drone operator who ignored a white flag. For Ukraine, that moment became a rallying cry. Mercy means nothing to those who have none. So the country has decided to fight back, not just with weapons, but with message and memory. As the nights grow longer and the temperatures drop, one question remains. How long can Russia endure the same darkness it once imposed on others?